My husband confessed he wasn't attracted to me, but now I know the real reason he said it. I still remember the day my friend Anna asked me for relationship advice. She's one of those women everyone calls stunning, the kind who can have her pick of men. That particular afternoon, she was venting about her ex, the one she broke up with because, in her words, he's way too insecure and I don't want to settle. And you know what she did? She actually used my marriage as an example of true love that could stand the test of time. I'm 31 years old. Actually, I turned 32 last month, and I've been married to Alan since we were pretty much kids. We're high school sweethearts, the cliche couple who started out going to prom together and never broke up. Anna's known us for a few years, so she's seen us be that close, comfortable couple who can finish each other's sentences and keep smiling through everyday annoyances. But here's the twist. She asked me, why would anyone settle? And then pointed to my marriage as proof you don't have to. She made some remark like, look at you and Alan. He definitely didn't settle, and neither did you. I laughed, and in the moment, I just blurted out something I'd kept quiet for years. Actually, Alan kind of settled for me. He's not even attracted to me, but we're happy. She froze, totally blindsided, and I realized I needed to clarify. I told her how, well, being settled for isn't always the worst thing in the world. If two people love each other, maybe attraction doesn't have to fit the typical mold. Anna looked at me like I'd grown two heads. Wait, what do you mean he's not attracted to you? She asked. That led to a longer conversation than I ever expected, and it culminated in me sharing my entire backstory with Alan. I was only trying to give her perspective. Not every marriage is about that Hollywood, oh, I find you irresistibly hot feeling, right? Our history, high school to happily married. Alan and I met in high school, sophomore year for me, junior year for him. Actually, let me backtrack. He'd been viciously bullied in middle school and continued to get picked on in high school. Kids can be cruel, especially when they sense an easy target. Alan was the shy, quiet type, scrawny in build, and it didn't help that he had braces plus a stutter until he was about 15. When my family moved to his hometown, I noticed immediately he was on the outskirts. No real friends, kind of invisible. I'm not the type to sit back and watch someone get bullied. So one day, when these jerks cornered him in the cafeteria, I intervened. I told them to back off, made a bit of a scene. Surprisingly, people respected me enough, maybe because I was taller and had a kind of no nonsense vibe, that the bullies laid off him. After that, Alan started talking to me more. We bonded over late night phone calls, swapped homework tips, and by the end of senior year, he asked me to prom. It felt so pure. By graduation, we were dating exclusively. Fast forward 10 years, we're living together, married, and from the outside, it's the perfect small town love story. We have inside jokes from high school, we watch old reruns, we handle chores together. He's a wonderful husband. I mean that. Supportive, caring, the type who'll remember your favorite snack and bring it home without being asked. The drunken confession. But there's one massive detail nobody else knows. About a year after we got married, Alan got drunk at a friend's birthday party, way drunker than usual. He's a lightweight anyway, so it didn't take much. That night, in the car ride home, he suddenly got real quiet and mumbled, you know, I'm not even attracted to you, right? I froze. My hands on the steering wheel started trembling. What? I asked, half laughing because it seemed so absurd. But he kept going, slurring his words. I prefer petite women, delicate faces, but I felt I owed you. You saved me. I had to say thank you somehow. He said that's why he asked me to prom, why he stuck around through college, why he proposed. He claimed he loved me, but that physically he just wasn't into me. Let me explain something about me. I'm taller than the average woman, definitely more muscular and broad shouldered. It's a huge insecurity. No matter how many times people say strong is beautiful, I can't help feeling massive next to petite, slender girls. So hearing Alan say, I prefer petite women, hammered a raw nerve. The next morning, he woke up with a raging hangover. No memory of that late night confession. He's not a big drinker for exactly that reason. He loses the filter entirely. I was shell shocked. I wasn't about to remind him of what he said because, ironically, I didn't want to crush him with guilt. Our marriage was good in every other way. I told myself, at least he loves you. At least he's here. That same day, I started burying that confession deep inside, acting normal outwardly, but it gnawed at me constantly. The conversation with Anna. So here I am years later, telling Anna, yeah, my husband doesn't really find me attractive. He basically settled because he felt indebted to me, but we're still super happy. She's wide eyed. She thanks me for the perspective, says something like, wow, I guess love can trump physical attraction sometimes. And I nodded, believing that wholeheartedly, because it never truly got in the way of our marriage, or so I thought. My husband overhears everything. That very night, something happened. I did not see coming. While Anna and I were talking, we'd been in the basement lounge area just to keep it private. I mentioned a ton of stuff, how he'd told me I was too tall, how I never told him I remembered that drunken night, how I honestly believed some men do settle physically, but still love their partners. You know, I spilled everything in that chat, feeling safe. Except Alan was upstairs and heard his name, so he came down quietly to eavesdrop. I had no clue. Later, I was asleep when I felt the bed shake. He was crying. My gentle, sweet husband, literally sobbing in the dark. I jolted awake and hugged him, asking, what's wrong? He just kept crying, silently at first, and then he admitted he overheard our entire conversation. I panicked. My mind raced to figure out which part upset him the most. My statement about him not being attracted to me, the phrase, he settled for me, or me telling Anna about that drunken night. I started apologizing. I'm so sorry, babe. I didn't mean to hurt you. But that only made him cry harder. Part of me was so confused. I wasn't the one who spilled the unattracted confession originally, right? He was, but I guess hearing me talk about it so matter of factly was a gut punch. We ended up in a swirl of emotional chaos. I tried to comfort him, but he pulled away, tears in his eyes, saying I had no idea what I'd done. Counseling and unraveling the truth. That's how we found ourselves in couples therapy. Initially, we saw a no nonsense but comforting older woman who quickly honed in on the heart of the issue. Was Alan truly settling? Or was there something deeper going on with his perception of me? Because from her vantage point, she said, if you two have an active sex life and genuine affection, I find it hard to believe he's not attracted to you in some capacity. Alan at first refused to talk about it. He'd say things like, I don't have bad thoughts about her, or I won't discuss my disgusting, intrusive fantasies. The therapist was like, wait, what do you mean disgusting or bad thoughts? It was a long, painful conversation. Turned out Alan had been severely bullied as a teen. That I knew. But what I didn't know was how it warped his sense of appropriate attraction. He was physically smaller back in high school, and the bullies made all these lewd jokes about me, especially since I was tall, stronger, able to defend him. They said stuff like, oh, bet you get off on her being bigger than you. She's probably the man in the relationship, just cruel teenage garbage. But some of those jeers matched or triggered Alan's actual fantasies or natural curiosity about me. It messed with his head deeply, making him equate his normal attraction to me with something sick or wrong. Over time, he built this mental fortress. I am not attracted to her. I shouldn't be. It's bad. Instead, he told himself he was doing the honorable thing by staying with me for emotional reasons, as a thank you for saving him from bullies. Meanwhile, in the bedroom, he'd either forcibly repress or, ironically, overcompensate. From my perspective, I thought we had an okay, sometimes even great sex life. Little did I know he was racked with guilt about finding me sexy. The pedestal issue. The therapist said something that shook me. He's placed you on a pedestal, seeing you as pure and above any sexual desire, so he denies his own attraction. She asked if we might actually be better as best friends, each married to someone else. Alan nearly lost it. No, I love her. I want my life with her. But as soon as she probed how he reconciles that with not being attracted, he snapped, I don't want to talk about having disgusting thoughts about my wife. That's when it all crystallized. He's not truly unattracted. He's terrified that acknowledging he finds me desirable makes him as bad as the bullies. In his mind, sexualizing me equals disrespecting me. And because he sees me as the gentle, protective soul who saved him, that's an unthinkable betrayal. My reaction: confusion and compassion. I'd spent years believing, well, he's just not into my body type, but hey, love conquers all. But now I learn the real problem. He is into me, but he's turned that attraction into some twisted moral crisis. He's battled intrusive thoughts and denies them, feeling monstrous for even looking at me a certain way. It clicked too with random memories, like how he'd always be extra cautious when helping me change after my surgery a couple years ago. He'd almost close his eyes while assisting me. I chalked it up to politeness, but apparently he was freaking out inside about wanting me in ways he deemed wrong. When he confessed that at therapy, I felt heartbreak and relief all at once. Heartbreak that he's carried so much shame and guilt, relief that the puzzle pieces finally fit together. He never hated my body. He hated himself for liking it. Meanwhile, I took his lack of attraction at face value. The path forward. After a few tense sessions, the counselor concluded I'm pretty stable mentally. I do have a people-pleasing streak, always prioritizing others' feelings, but I'm not the crux of the problem. Alan is. He has deeper trauma and negative thought patterns from the bullying that requires more intensive therapy. She recommended he do personal therapy sessions, and he started right away. I wish I could say it was an easy fix. It's not. I see him sometimes wrestling with the notion that he's allowed to find me sexy and be normal about it. He still tries to shield me from the world, convinced that if other men notice I'm strong or tall, they'll have dirty thoughts about me, which he finds horrifying. I keep telling him, Alan, I'm a grown woman. The world is big and I can handle it. But he's stuck on the idea that I'm pure, and everyone else, including him, has to keep their lustful eyes away. We parted ways with our couples counselor because Alan's one-on-one therapy sessions are more crucial right now. He was honest. He said some fantasies are normal, some intrusive fantasies are darker. I told him, I love you, I trust you, and I'm not scared of your thoughts. But it's a work in progress. Where we stand today, I don't know if we'll ever be the typical couple that brags about mutual attraction out loud. Sometimes the old insecurity creeps up in me. He's only with me out of gratitude. But I'm trying to unlearn that because the truth is more complicated. He's with me because he loves me so fiercely that he turned that love into an extreme form of protectiveness. In some twisted way, that's almost a compliment, except it caused him a lot of internal pain. He's still going to therapy. I'm still cheering him on. We do chores together, watch our TV shows, cuddle at night. Yes, he's a huge cuddle bug. And occasionally have those deep talks about how we can keep healing. Some days it's sweet and reassuring. Other days he's distant, dealing with shame or guilt. But we keep moving forward. Anna asked me recently if I regret telling her about the whole "he's not attracted to me" thing. Part of me does because it led to Alan overhearing and unraveling. But another part is grateful. Without that meltdown, we wouldn't have discovered the real trauma he was hiding. Maybe it's good we got it all out in the open. I still have my insecurities about my body. I'm still tall, broad-shouldered, and definitely not the petite ideal. But that's okay, because after everything, I see how much Alan truly cares. And I finally understand he's not settling for me. He's fighting an internal battle to see me as a woman he can desire without shame. And honestly, I'd rather work on that together than keep living in a comfortable lie. Final thoughts. So, that's my strange, messy story. It's got confessions, eavesdropping, therapy sessions, and a lot of raw emotion in between. But if there's one thing I've learned, it's that love can be complicated in ways you'd never guess from the outside. It's not always about he's out of my league or I'm not his type. Sometimes it's the hidden baggage, bullying, intrusive thoughts, misguided chivalry that twists our perceptions of what attraction even means. I don't know how things will look in a year or two, but right now we're together, we're honest, and we're determined to grow. He's opening up about how he genuinely finds me beautiful, but can't shake the fear that beautiful objectified. Meanwhile, I keep telling him, it's okay for us to want each other. It's okay to have healthy desire. It's okay to let the past bullies fade into memory. I love him for who he is. And that means every part of him, faults, fantasies, and all. Am I worried? Sure. But I'm also hopeful. Because after all these revelations, we're no longer operating on half truths. We're facing each other, facing ourselves. And that's the best chance we have. It won't be easy, but I'd rather fight for a real, complicated marriage than settle for an illusion where we pretend everything's perfect. And that's the key, I guess. We aren't perfect. We're just two flawed people refusing to give up on each other. And maybe, in the end, that's love in its truest form.